Yeah, hello, good morning. Before the jibes come in about the technology, I am going to use an overhead projector. I have been known to use PowerPoint, but I want to do this because, well, you'll see very quickly why. I want to be able to flip and change. For those who haven't been here before, let me just explain. Originally, this seminar was set up because the distance learning students studied for 2 years or 3 years, whatever it was, without talking to anybody. And they wanted to see who we were. So we had arranged seminars here. And the idea originally was nothing more than to give you the chance to talk. I'm the fall guy. My job is to create an atmosphere where you talk to each other. So you see the title, Information Security, what's it all about? And you might be tempted to think that that's what I'm going to attempt to answer. It's not. You're going to answer. I'm just going to listen and maybe throw in the odd comment if and when it's appropriate. You should also be aware that there are an awful lot of, let's say, graduates or ex-professors or whatever in the room. Dieter Goldman at the back there helped us set up the master's program and then left us to go to bigger things, greater things, then left the greater things and came back to academia. There are a number of people here with the degree and so on. So it will be easy to get the conversation going. What we've got to remember is there are students here. How many of you have not even started the degree yet? See, so we've got to make sure that you just don't get swamped. So you've got to cry out. If people use words you don't know the meaning of, ask them and I will make sure they answer. This will shut them up from making them dominate. So what is it all about? Well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm hoping you're going to tell me. But this is sort of a working definition or working methodology, whatever you to say, that the Royal Holloway people use. The features are confidentiality, which is protecting information from unauthorized disclosure. Integrity, which is protecting information from unauthorized modification. And then availability, which is ensuring information is available to authorized users. And I think it's clear, yes, the unauthorized, authorized is the common theme. So it's not surprising to find that authentication is arguably the central theme of all security. It's easy to have confidential conversations with people you talk to the wrong person. It's very easy to let the wrong people change things. And the Data Protection Act and so on is there to try to make sure that only authorized people can do the right things. So I'm not going to go into that too much. I do want to go to the next slide, and if I don't get any further than this transparency, I'll be delighted. What is it all about? Well, up there are 3 topics, and the sages in the room will be looking and saying, that's not enough, there should be more. Let's go through them first. Technology. There's hardware, algorithms, protocols. Technology is clearly important. And then for management infrastructure, you need your key management to look after the cryptographic keys. Security architectures, that's the framework, the design and so on. BS 77999, I deliberately haven't changed that. That was a code of practice that's turned into a standard, which you might call it a standard of management or a standard of good behavior, but it's really a code of practice. And then there's business, and we mustn't forget business. I mean, no business exists to be secure. It'd be interesting to do in a minute to ask you why you're in the room, why you're studying information security, and I'll come on to that in a little while. But at the back of everything else is that securities have to meet their business requirements. Now, I deliberately haven't changed this slide since last year. I haven't changed this slide for, I think, 7 years, whenever we did the first one. But a lot of things have happened since, and there are lots of different emphases. And it is conceivable that the wise men in the room were saying, well, he hasn't got no human factors there. And there's no doubt human factors are coming up the agenda. They're certainly there. It's certainly true, for instance. Now, let me just get, how many of you live outside the UK? Okay, so if I quote some things that happened in the UK that you're not aware of, remind me. But recently in the UK, for instance, there was the tax office lost, or we believe they lost, 2 disks with the records of 25 million people on them, personal records of 25 million people. And that was undoubtedly due to human error or deliberate human fraud. I mean, we're not quite sure which. You can't blame the technology. It is true that without the technology, no one could have stole 25 million records. 10 years ago, to steal those same records, you'd need umpteen forklift trucks, and you'd take away a lot of paper, so it'd been difficult. So the technology enabled the information to be on 1 or 2 disks, but the loss of the disks was not the fault of the technology. It was the fault either of not having the processes in place or of people not following the processes. So that could be all hidden in here, or you could argue I should have changed the slide and put up human factors and had a whole section, and maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, I don't care. I mean, there is no doubt, however, that the profile of information security is changing. There's no doubt it's increasing dramatically, almost day by day. Just last week, the Dutch government had to abandon all of their plans for e-government because the certification authority they were using turned out to be untrustworthy for some reason. We don't quite sure why, but it's a changing world. So I have a number of questions. For those of you who haven't started the degree yet, why have you chosen information security? For those of you who have done the degree, what is information security? Why have you done it? And why is it changing so much? Why is the profile of information security so high now? Is it just because there are so many breaches, or is it for other reasons? Over to you. Kerry, you can't sit there quietly. You harassed me for using slides. You start the thing going. Mr. Technology.
Why is security so important now? I think because it's much easier to defraud organisations, to steal identities. The technology makes it so much easier, as you just said, stealing 2 disks with 25 million records. If it's easy and people think they can get away with it, then they'll try and do it. So we, as the security professionals, have to try and stop them doing it.
Right. Go on.
I think the big thing is...
So could you say who you are, as you see? I mean, that's Kerry Davis. I'll say who he is. One of our distinguished alumni.
Agenda?
Yes.
First year.
First year, great. That's what I want to hear. Yeah, go on.
It's becoming a core part of business. I mean, it's used by the banking industry.
What business are you in?
Banking.
Banking, okay, yeah.
So, not for like examiner, but it's becoming a core part of business and the amount of money and without it, without e-commerce, without technology, a lot of the businesses can't operate anymore. So, in order to ensure that customers are confident with what their operations, they need to ensure the security is in place, that they're following appropriate regulations both within the UK and international to operate. So I think that's quite key now as well.
Okay, but hasn't that always been true? Hasn't banking always had security as one of its main briefs, even before technology was there?
Not really. I mean, e-commerce, people are doing banking from the phones, people are doing banking on the internet. It's used a lot more in the operations. So I think it's become more and more important year on year.
But has it become more and more important because the ability to fraud has become easier, or is it more and more important because the banks are suddenly becoming responsible?
It's becoming more and more important because, not because fraud is becoming easy, because people get more intelligent within the IT community. The average script kiddie can sit at home, download appropriate tools, and attempt to deny a service.
Yep.
So that's one factor. It's also people becoming more alert to the fact that banks are not, they need to be more careful with their data and information. They're becoming more demanding from the business as well, in terms of you need to ensure you're securing my data. You need to ensure that people can't commit fraud against my accounts.
Yeah.
Use credit cards online, Amazon, I mean, everyone's done it. So
Yeah.
everyone's more alert to the fact. So, whilst 5 years ago, how many people knew about antivirus software? It's still quite relatively new.
Yep.
So that's a big factor.
Okay. Anyone else want to?
I also.
Go on. I can't see. Where are you? So, who are you? Where are you from?
I'm
Just a-
United Australia,
Yeah.
United States of America.
Welcome.
I also think that businesses, because of liability, although it's easier, your credit card is for many years, someone will defraud your credit card and the business is not clear, they'll just reimburse you, push it under the mat, and that's it. Now it's publicized because of the reputation, because it's bad for business, and because of liability with all the regulations and laws. I think that's a major factor why a lot of businesses are investing much more in security.
So
I think that's a driving force to why a lot of
what regulation?
regulations, laws, liability, lawsuits too,
Yep.
because these things are publicized. It's no longer you lost $2,000 on a credit card and then quietly pay you $2,000 and forget about it. It's now this could be a class action suit, lawsuit, costs you hundreds of millions of dollars. It's bad advertisement too.
And also directors can be jailed, so
Yeah.
that's a big factor in as well. They're responsible for ensuring that it used due diligence. So
Yeah,
if you don't,
yeah.
you're in trouble. So there's a lot more pressure, downward pressure from the top down to ensure things are secure.
That's the pressure on you.
Exactly.
That's right. Now, I understand that.
Keeps me employed, so I'm not
Yeah,
complaining.
no. I think I mean, the recent events in the last 2 years suggest that information security may be a good profession to be in. Until you get too senior, because then you get sacked. But if you stay round about a certain nice level and just do it nicely, then it's fine. Anybody else want to add anything? Yes.
Professor Calabassi, a continuing student. I think the example that you mentioned, which wasn't really a business as such, it was a government body. So you could say that commerce and government are intrinsically linked somewhat. So there are other motivations to step up security. I mean, you've got, perhaps you could argue, ideologies could be a threat, whereby one, I wouldn't say rogue government, but certainly there'd be more attacks by governments on other governments to try and destabilize their economies or shut down their nuclear reactors or whatnot. So from that point of view, security is also an important part of life, as it were, and ways of life.
Indeed, but I mean, you've only got to go to the James Bond films to know that these type of things have been happening for years.
Yeah.
So is it?
Outlandish as they may seem, some of them actually.
Is it just the technology environments that's changing and bring everything up, or are there new things?
It's definitely on the up as well.
Sorry?
Attack sophistication is also on the up.
Yeah.
And if you look at the availability, I mean, not from the CIA triad, but from how easy it is now to obtain technologies or even buy people or buy people's who are on the inside to try and compromise systems and companies and governments, if you like, which is actually a good motivation for us to remain one step ahead. I don't actually think we are one step ahead, but you can obviously correct me at that point.
I think we're 2 steps behind. I'm not going to say we're 1 step ahead.
Exactly, we are actually a step behind too, but
So is all this advancing technology a good thing or a bad thing?
well, it depends. Technology itself is not good or evil.
Now you've learned. The answer to all security questions is it all depends. There's no question about that, but you have to say what it depends on. That's right. So we have advancing technology, and that advanced technology on the whole is available to, if you like, both sides. And the idea is for the side that we consider the good guys, who may or may not be the good guys, to stay ahead. And that's why you're here, presumably, and that's why you want to do your job better, and you're here to learn. So how important is the technology? Are any one of those 3 things any more important than any other? And what have I left off that should be there?
Human behavior.
Yeah, I've got that. The human factors
I think you've deliberately missed it.
I've deliberately left that off to make sure that, and the more you people bring it in, the better. I mean, I do not deny. I volunteered the facts.
Well, a lot of these things are somewhat set. There might be some sort of ambiguity, but the one thing that's unpredictable, I would say, is human behavior. Now you can argue with encryption. I think that software is probably the only thing that has bugs. I think I've read that somewhere in one of the modules. But human behavior is probably the most unpredictable of all things, which means that even if you put processes in place, somebody could turn rogue. You just cannot predict. In which case, how do you?
Okay, I don't want to argue anything. I want you two to argue. I want you all to argue with each other. I just sit here and listen. So is anybody agreeing or disagreeing with him?
I was just going to add something, and it may be a subset.
I knew you couldn't keep quiet for long.
I want to see where we're I'm Stephen Farrell. one of the things that some people may have touched on there is the information has a life cycle. And so in the pharmaceutical industry, you probably could look at 10, 15 years where the information will be protected and integrity maintained. For example, a compound, say, may take 10 years to develop, and it's in the last 2 years it becomes very, very prized piece of information. Something could take and negate years of research. So I just want to say that's one thing that's quite critical, the life cycle of information.
Indeed, but it's always been critical. Sorry, but in the pharmaceutical industry, for instance, the information has always been critical.
It is, yeah. But I think with the advent, as you said, the large lorries taking away, the USB sticks taking away large loads of information is now more so than in the past.
Okay, so are we moving in the right direction? I mean, obviously Holloway is. We offer this degree, and you're all here, and it's wonderful. And you've got a degree in information security at Hamburg, haven't you? You got no, Dieter?
Yeah.
So
I can throw in another one.
do throw things in, yes, in English.
Once upon a time, IT was between the professionals, and we could ask the professionals to look after themselves properly. Now we've thrown IT with the hoi polloi. You're running around with your smart devices, smartphones, iPads. My mother in her late 80s says that's what you need today.
Mm-hmm.
That to me has changed the rules of the game quite a lot.
Right, it's changed the rules of the game. Yes, okay.
We can no longer tell the users of the systems, you're professionals, go to the MSc, get an education in information security, implement best practices in your organization.
We can tell them all that.
We
We just tell them it's not sufficient. That's not enough, that's right. So what happens after they get the degree? What happens to your students after they get the degree? You need a job.
I have an analogy.
Sorry? You have?
I think coming to the MSc is like, if I use an analogy of a chef, it's like you know how to operate a microwave, how to operate your pan, your oven, but you couldn't cook. You actually need to practice what you have learned. Then you know why you're doing something the way you did before, and why it's wrong or right for that matter.
Yep.
So that's what the MSc will give you, the knowledge.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, okay. No, let's, sorry, I didn't mean to get, we're not here to plug the MSc. I mean, it's a bloody good MSc, you wouldn't be here otherwise. No, let's take that as a tenet. Let's take that as an axiom. The question is, what is happening to information security? And you're right, and any educational degree, whether it's in security or anything else, is just the start. Knowledge comes first, well, knowledge comes, but you need competency and skills, and that's true everywhere. And point made.
So if technology has opened up a large number of attack paths, and as Dieter says,
It has.
we're putting these
Yep.
bits of technology into every Tom, Dick and Harry's hands.
Yep.
Should we be worried? Are the people who are using the technology worried? Do they care? Do they have an expectation of security, or do they just want to use the technology for whatever it is and assume the risks are acceptable?
Okay, can I come back to, should we be worried? You said at the initial, right? Do you mean morally or from a practical point of view?
Well, I think we, as
Yeah.
if you like security professionals, are probably worried from both of those standpoints.
Right.
But the people who are using the technology out there, the great unwashed,
Yep.
I don't know whether they care.
Well, it's quite clear that many citizens don't care because they don't understand and don't need to understand what they should be caring about. I mean, if I use the term, I mean, we talk about information security. The government's talk about information assurance. This term now, cyber security, is suddenly come above both of them. And once you do it towards cyber, then of course governments shit their pants because they're worried. They are very worried, and rightly so too, about what is loosely being called cyber warfare and infiltrations and so on. Should I, as an individual, be worried that my PC might be a botnet? Well, if it doesn't stop me doing anything, probably not. If I lose my account details of my bank so someone can take money out of my bank account, then definitely. So it depends what you're using the computers for and what you're worried about. I mean, if you take passwords, for instance, I am much more worried about locking myself out of my system than other people getting into it, because there's nothing on it I really care about. So that would influences my view on password control, for instance. Now, I will put another slide up. And the reason I'm going to do it will be quite clear if I can find the damn thing. Yeah. Sorry? Oh, no, it wouldn't. I've tried it, but it doesn't work for me. Let's talk about encryption, because I know encryption quite well. And there is no question at all that the use of encryption for confidentiality has always bothered governments. That's a statement I'm happy to defend, and I don't think any government would think. And if you look at government's policy on encryption, then crudely speaking, they want or are happy for the good guys, and good has to be in inverted commas because it's their definition of good, to be using encryption for everything that's good. They just don't want it used for bad purposes. And the problem with that concept is that the idea of good and bad is one thing subjective and also changes. Alliances between countries change over decades and so on. So here's a system. 2 communicators, sender and receiver, interceptor. And you use encryption because you don't want the interceptor to know what you're doing. So there are 3 players there, and the sender and receiver want to exchange confidential information. They don't want the interceptor to know what they're doing. So who in that triangle are the good guys? Is it the sender and the receiver? Or is it the interceptor? And of course, it's a stupid question because it depends who they are and what it's being used for. And so you cannot say, I mean, if you look at the early books written in the 1980s, there was a whole host of books written on cryptography, and all the authors said in those books, though none of them believed it, because they all knew the truth, that the good guys were the sender and the receiver, typically the banks, and the bad guy was going to be the bank robber trying to take your money out your bank. And so the concept of a burglar being a man with a mask and a swag bag was changing to be a hacker or a computer freak or whatever you want to call them. And then in 1991, on this famous occasion, the American government came along and said, you got it all wrong. We're the good guys. If you can't trust your government, who can you trust? That famous statement that had us all rolling in the aisles. And we sit here. And we have to sit here to protect our country from terrorists, paedophiles, law enforcement, good of the nation, etc., etc., etc. And and this was known for everybody, the Echelon network has been well known for years. Within 2 or 3 months, the UK government said, well, of course we intercept. It's part of daily life, doesn't everybody do it? And there is this concept of lawful interception. But it doesn't help you to find who the good guys and the bad guys are. So then you have to face up to, and I think, what time do you want me to stop, Colin?
Yes, I'm just about to stop.
Okay. In that case, let me just put one more slide up, then I will stop. Well, maybe put 2 more slides up. Here's law enforcement's dilemma. I genuinely believe they don't want to intrude in other people's private lives. Now, there are certain civil liberties organisations who may disagree with that, and that's my personal belief. They certainly don't want to hinder e-commerce, not for UK e-commerce. They do want to have their own secure communications, no question. They need to. They occasionally use interception to obtain information, and be aware there is a concept of lawful interception. Lawful interception is a recognised concept. It's not subversive. They legally intercept. And so they occasionally need to read confiscated encrypted information. Famous occasions are current paedophile files where they've got loads of disks. They firmly believe they've got paedophile information on it, but they can't break it. So now look at 3 and 5. Go back to this slide here. One of them implies that sometimes law enforcement wants to be on the horizontal line, and sometimes law enforcement wants to be on the vertical line. When you're on the horizontal line, you want your encryption to be unbreakable. When you're on the vertical line, you want to break the encryption being used. Brilliant though cryptographers may be, they can't invent an algorithm that's strong when the good guys use it and weak when the bad guys use it. So there's a dilemma here. You can't win on the vertical line and on the horizontal line. You can try it, but you clearly can't. So the dilemma is, what do you do about encryption? Now, I'm not going to answer it, but there's the type of thing and the dilemma comes really because it's not clear who the good guys are and who the bad guys are in every situation. It is clear that many different countries, many different organizations are all using the same technology. And so the good guys and the bad guys share technology. They share technology, but they have different motives, different inventives. What the answer is, I don't know. Colin is about to come and rap me on the knuckles. So I think I'll stop. You disappointed me. I got to 4 slides instead of 2, which means you failed, ladies and gentlemen. But I guess I jumped it. Okay, thank you.